When was the last time you did something, anything significant, without checking whether someone approved, without scanning the room for the nod, without monitoring the face across from you for the micro-expression that says you did well, without the quiet, persistent, almost invisible background process that runs in your mind during every significant interaction, measuring how what you just did or said was received, and adjusting your next move based on the measurement? Think about it. Really think about it. When was the last time you moved through a significant moment of your life with your attention pointed entirely at the thing you were doing rather than at the audience watching you do it? If you are being honest, truly, uncomfortably honest, the answer is almost never. Approval checking has been running in the background of your operating system for so long that you do not even register it as a process anymore. It feels like normal thinking. It feels like awareness. It feels like the natural state of a person who is engaged with the people around them and attentive to how their behavior is being received. It is not normal thinking. It is the most expensive program your mind runs. And it has been costing you everything. Machiavelli wrote something about approval that cuts through every self-help approach to this topic with a precision that has not dulled in 500 years. He said, "Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceiver will always find someone willing to be deceived." Now hear the layer beneath that. The immediate need he is describing, the need that dominates the mind and makes the person available to be managed, is the need for approval. Because approval is the most immediate of all social needs. It arrives moment to moment. It is assessed interaction by interaction, and it governs behavior with a granularity that no other need matches. The person who needs approval adjusts at the level of the sentence, the level of the expression, the level of the single word chosen over the alternative word, because the chosen word is the one more likely to produce the approving response. That granularity of adjustment is the most thorough form of external control available in any human dynamic. And you have been running it voluntarily. My friend, let me tell you what the approval seeking has been building while you were too busy monitoring the room to see the construction. It has been building a version of you that the room designed rather than a version you chose. Every adjustment you made in response to the room's reaction was a brick in a structure that the room was building and you were funding. Structure is the version of you that the room is comfortable with, not the version that is most genuinely you. The version that produces the least friction. The version that accommodates most readily. The version that says yes when yes is easier and holds opinions that match the room's rather than opinions that match your own honest assessment. That version, the room's version of you, has been replacing the genuine version one approval-seeking adjustment at a time. And the genuine version, buried under years of accumulated adjustments, is the version that this video uncovers. This video gives you 7 laws for shutting down the approval program and replacing it with the internal operating system that produces the specific reversal the title of this video promises. Because the reversal is real, it is documented, it is observable. When you stop seeking approval, people start seeking yours. Not because you became more attractive, because you became less available. And less available in any human valuation system is more valuable. That is the mechanism. That is the reversal. And the 7 laws that follow are the specific instructions for producing it. Machiavelli observed, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Very few experience what you actually are." Right now, what you appear to be is someone who is seeking. And the seeking, visible in your eyes, in your pace, in the specific quality of trying that the room reads before you have finished your first sentence, is what is producing the treatment you have been receiving. Change what you appear to be, and the treatment changes automatically. Before I start, the last law in this video is the one that makes every other law permanent. Miss it, and the rest fades within a week. Stay to the very end. If you are ready to stop chasing approval and start watching people chase you instead, comment the words "I stop seeking." Like this video, because every like puts it in front of someone who is still adjusting at the level of the sentence based on what they think the room wants to hear. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. And drop your location and the time right now. This community is real, and right now it matters who is here. Law 1. Approval seeking is the loudest signal of low self-assessment the room can receive. And the room reads it before you have finished your first sentence. Let me tell you what the room sees when it sees an approval seeker. Not the words, not the content, the energy. The specific, readable, unmistakable quality of someone whose internal assessment of their own value is not yet settled, and who is looking to the room to complete the assessment for them. That energy shows up in how quickly you agree with what was just said, in how eagerly you laugh at the joke that was not quite funny enough to warrant the enthusiasm you gave it, in how fast you adjust your position when the first hint of disagreement appears on someone's face, and the specific quality of over-accommodation that tells the room, at the level of the nervous system, before any conscious evaluation has occurred, this person's sense of themselves depends on what we give them, and what depends on us is what we control. Most people seek approval because the seeking feels like engagement, like connection, like the natural behavior of someone who cares about the people around them and wants the interaction to go well. Machiavelli would never seek approval. Here is what he would do instead. He would enter the room with his assessment already complete, not arrogantly, not with the performed confidence that reads as overcompensation, with the specific, settled, internally grounded quality of someone whose opinion of themselves was formed before they walked through the door and will not be revised by anything the room provides or withholds. That quality, felt by every nervous system in the room before a single substantive word has been exchanged, is the thing that reverses the dynamic, because the room cannot control the person whose assessment is already settled. And what the room cannot control, the room pursues. Not consciously, instinctively, because the unavailable is always more interesting than the available, and the person who does not need the room's approval is the most unavailable person in the space. Here is a specific scenario. You walk into a professional meeting. The old version of you immediately begins the scan. Who is the decision maker? What does the decision maker value? How do I position my contribution to align with what the decision maker wants to hear? Every one of those questions is an approval-seeking question. Every one of them points your attention outward, toward the audience, rather than toward the work. The new version enters differently. The new version has already evaluated the work, has already assessed its quality through its own honest internal process, and walks into the room carrying the contribution with the energy of someone who knows what it is worth, regardless of what the room decides to offer for it. The room feels the difference. The decision maker feels the difference. And the treatment, the specific quality of respect and attentiveness that arrives in response to the settled energy, is different from anything the approval-seeking version ever received. Machiavelli said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Apply this to your approval seeking. The first method the room uses for estimating your value is to watch whether your energy seeks or settles. Seeking says, I need you to tell me what I am worth. Settling says, I already know. And the room responds to the settler with the deference that the seeker was working twice as hard to earn and never receiving. Let me give you a second scenario that takes this from the professional into the personal. You are at a dinner with friends. The old program runs immediately. Am I being interesting enough? Are they enjoying my company? Did that joke land? Should I share this opinion, or would it create tension that risks the approval? Every question is aimed at managing their experience of you, rather than managing your experience of the evening. The new version enters with a different internal frame. The new version is not monitoring whether the table approves. The new version is genuinely present, listening because the listening is interesting, speaking because the thought is worth sharing, laughing because the moment is genuinely funny, rather than because the laughing is the response most likely to maintain the warmth. The difference between those two versions is not behavioral. It is energetic. And the energy, the specific quality of someone who is there because they chose to be, rather than because they need the table to confirm they belong, is felt by every person at the dinner before the first course arrives. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who performs for the room has made the room his audience. The man who is genuinely present has made the room his company. Audiences evaluate, company engages, and the quality of engagement that arrives from company is always richer, warmer, and more genuine than anything the performance could have produced. Stop performing. Start being present. And notice how the room responds to presence differently than it responded to performance. Comment. I arrive with my assessment already complete. Law 2. The reversal mechanism. When you stop seeking, the room starts offering. Because the scarcity of your attention creates the value that the abundance of your attention was destroying. My friend, Machiavelli understood scarcity as a principle of human valuation more clearly than any thinker before or since. He wrote, "There is nothing that wastes itself so quickly as generosity, for as you use it, you lose the means of using it." Replace the word generosity with approval-seeking attention, and the principle is identical. There is nothing that wastes itself so quickly as your attention to approval, because every moment you spend monitoring the room's response is a moment that devalues the thing the room was responding to, which is you. Here is the mechanism in its simplest form. What is freely available is categorized as low value. What is scarce is categorized as high value. Your attention, your engagement, your specific quality of invested interest, when it is pointed at the room seeking approval, is freely available. The room has unlimited access to it. And unlimited access produces the specific, automatic, neurologically inevitable devaluation that unlimited access always produces. The room does not need to earn your attention. You are giving it freely. And what is given freely is never valued at the level of what must be earned. When you withdraw the seeking, when your attention redirects from monitoring the room's response to investing in your own work, your own standards, your own genuine interests, the room experiences a scarcity event. Something that was freely available has become selective, and the selectivity triggers the same valuation mechanism that scarcity always triggers. The room begins to pursue, not because you became more interesting, because you became less available. And less available is the category that every human nervous system assigns the highest value to. There is a specific practice. For the next 2 weeks, in every significant interaction, redirect 50% of the attention that currently goes to monitoring the room's response. Do not redirect it inward as anxiety. Redirect it toward the substance of what you are actually doing, toward the quality of your own thinking, toward the depth of your own engagement with the content rather than with the audience. That redirection, visible to the room through the specific quality of someone who is genuinely occupied with the work rather than with the room's evaluation of the work, is the scarcity event that triggers the pursuit. The room, sensing that your attention has become selective, begins doing something it never did when the attention was freely available, working to earn it. Let me tell you something about this reversal that goes deeper than the strategic level. When you stop seeking approval, you do not just become more valuable to the room, you become more valuable to yourself, because the energy that was being consumed by the monitoring, the constant, low-grade background process expenditure of attention that the approval-seeking required, is now available for the thing that actually produces value: your work, your thinking, your genuine engagement with the substance of your life, rather than with the audience watching you live it. The energy reclamation is enormous. You do not realize how much the seeking was consuming until the seeking stops and the consumption ends, and the freed energy arrives with a force that changes what you are capable of producing. Machiavelli built the prince with the energy that was freed when the approval of the Florentine court was no longer available to seek. The exile removed the audience, and the removal of the audience freed the energy that the audience had been consuming. That energy, redirected from the seeking of the court's approval to the building of the most important book he would ever write, produced more than the seeking ever had, because the seeking was consuming, and the building was producing. Same energy, different direction, completely different output. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that anchors this permanently. He wrote, "The more sand has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it." The sand you have been spending on approval seeking is sand that has escaped. You cannot recover it, but you can stop the spending. And the sand that remains, directed toward the building rather than the seeking, will produce more in the remaining time than the seeking produced in all the time that preceded it. Comment, I let scarcity do what chasing never could. Law 3. Build your validation internally through the honest assessment of what you produce. The room's opinion is data. Your opinion is the operating system. Machiavelli wrote, "He who has relied least on fortune is established the strongest." Apply this to validation. The person who has relied least on the room's approval is the person whose confidence is established the strongest. Because the room's approval is fortune, it fluctuates based on mood, circumstance, politics, and the specific shifting dynamics of the environment you happen to be operating inside. The person who builds their sense of value on the room's approval has built on fortune. And fortune, as Machiavelli documented across every political case he studied, changes. Always. Without warning. And the person who built on it finds, when it changes, that the foundation has shifted underneath them, and the value they felt when the approval was flowing has evaporated now that the flow has been redirected. Internal validation is different. Internal validation is built on something fortune cannot reach, your own honest assessment of what you have produced, not the inflated assessment of someone who is performing confidence, not the defensive assessment of someone who is avoiding the truth, the honest assessment, the one that says this piece of work was excellent and means it, the one that says this contribution was below my standard and means that too. The honest assessment does not need the room's confirmation because it was formed through the specific, private, rigorously honest process of evaluating your own output against your own standards. And your own standards, set by you, calibrated by you, applied with the consistency that only you can apply, are the most reliable assessment tool available because they do not fluctuate with the room's mood. Here is your practice. At the end of each day, spend 2 minutes evaluating your own performance, not through the lens of what the room thought, through the lens of what you think. Did I produce at the level I know I am capable of? Was my contribution today consistent with the standard I have set for myself? Were the decisions I made today the decisions that my own honest assessment says were correct? Those 3 questions, answered honestly and without reference to the room's response, build the internal validation system that makes the room's approval feel like what it actually is, nice when it arrives and irrelevant to the foundation. Machiavelli would tell you, the prince whose confidence depends on the court's approval is the prince who has given the court the power to determine his state. And a state that is determined by the court is a state that the court can change at any time. Build your state on your own assessment, and let the court's approval arrive or depart without the arrival or departure changing anything about how you feel about what you have produced. Let me give you a specific framework for building the internal validation system. At the end of each week, answer 3 questions in a private journal. First, what did I produce this week that met my own standard of excellence? Not the room's standard, mine. Second, where did I fall below my own standard, and what specific adjustment would bring it back to level? Third, did I make any decision this week based on the room's approval rather than my own assessment? And what would the decision have been if the room's approval had not been a factor? Those 3 questions, answered honestly every week for 90 days, build something that no amount of external approval can replicate. A genuine, tested, evidence-based relationship with your own capability. The relationship is honest. It includes the failures alongside the successes. It includes the adjustments alongside the achievements. And because it includes both, because the internal assessment is not inflated but accurate, it produces a quality of confidence that the room's approval cannot shake. Because the confidence is not built on the hope that you are good. It is built on the evidence that you are. Specific evidence. Documented weekly. Held with the composure that honest self-knowledge always produces. Machiavelli would tell you that the prince who knows his own kingdom does not need the ambassador's report to tell him what is happening inside his own borders. Know your kingdom. Assess it honestly. And let the knowledge of what you actually are, documented through your own weekly assessment, rather than received through the room's intermittent and unreliable feedback, be the foundation that the room's opinion supplements but never replaces. Comment I validate through my own standards. Law 4. Stop performing for audiences that have not earned the performance. Your best work deserves a room that has demonstrated it will hold it with care. My friend Machiavelli made an observation about generosity that applies with devastating precision to the approval seeker's habit of performing for every room. He wrote, "Generosity exercised in a way that does not bring you the reputation of it injures you." Apply this. The performance of your best self, exercised in a way that is directed at every room indiscriminately, injures you. Because the performance that is given to every room is the performance that no room values. It is the performance of someone who does not distinguish between the room that deserves it and the room that does not. And the absence of distinction, the visible, readable evidence that you perform at the same level for everyone, regardless of what they have contributed to the relationship, is the signal that tells the room your performance is not selective. And not selective means not valuable. Same performance, different perceived value, based entirely on whether the room had to earn the receiving or whether the receiving was given for free. Here is the shift. Before you deploy your best self, before you bring the full energy, the full engagement, the full quality of your attention and your warmth and your genuine care, evaluate whether the recipient has earned the deployment, not through words, through behavior, through the specific, observable, documented history of how this person or this room has treated the previous deployments. Did they receive with care? Did they reciprocate with equivalent quality? Did they hold what you gave with the respect that what you gave deserved? If the answer is yes, deploy fully. If the answer is no, if the history says they received carelessly, reciprocated inadequately, or held what you gave with less care than it warranted, reduce the deployment. Not as a punishment, as an honest allocation of a finite resource toward the recipients that have demonstrated they will handle it with the care it deserves. Most people perform fully for every room because reducing the performance feels like being less than who they are. Machiavelli would never perform fully for an unearned audience. He would say, "The performance given to the undeserving is not generosity, it is waste. And waste, sustained across enough interactions with enough undeserving recipients, is the specific behavior that produces the exhaustion that the approval seeker carries as the daily cost of their indiscriminate output." Let me give you a specific practice for implementing this law. Before your next significant deployment of your best self, before you bring the full warmth, the full engagement, the full quality of your genuine care and attention to a person or a situation, ask yourself 3 questions. First, has this person or situation reciprocated at a level that warrants this deployment? Second, will this deployment be received with the care that its quality deserves? Third, would I make this same deployment if the approval I might receive from it were not a factor in my decision? Those three questions serve as a filter. They do not prevent you from being generous. They prevent you from being indiscriminate. And the distinction between generous and indiscriminate is the distinction between the person whose warmth is valued because it is selective and the person whose warmth is taken for granted because it arrives regardless of whether the recipient has done anything to deserve it. Machiavelli said, "A prince ought to show himself a patron of ability and should honor those who excel in every art." Apply this to your best self. You ought to deploy your best to those who have shown they will honor it. And those who have not shown that, who have received your best carelessly, who have reciprocated inadequately, who have treated the deployment as an entitlement rather than as the gift it actually is, should receive the standard version, not as punishment, as accuracy, as the honest allocation of a limited resource toward the recipients who have demonstrated through behavior that the resource will be held with the care it requires. Comment: I reserve my best for those who earned it. Before I move to Law 5, I want to be direct with you. The first 4 laws dismantled the approval-seeking pattern. They showed you what the seeking costs, how the reversal works, where the internal system gets built, and who deserves your best. The final 3 laws build what replaces the seeking. They install the specific qualities that convert you from the person who is chasing the room's response to the person whose response the room is chasing. Subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell. Stay. Because the transformation from seeker to source is where everything changes. Law 5. The person who validates themselves becomes the person others seek validation from. You do not just stop being the seeker. You become the source. This is the law that changes everything about how the reversal works in practice. Because the reversal is not just the cessation of seeking, it is the transformation from seeker to source. And the transformation produces a specific quality of influence that no amount of approval seeking could ever generate. Here is the mechanism. When you stop seeking approval from the room, something changes in how you carry yourself. The settled, internally grounded, non-seeking quality of your energy communicates something specific to every nervous system that encounters it. This person does not need what we are offering, and what is not needed is not just valued more highly. It becomes the thing the room seeks from you. Because the room, encountering someone who does not need its approval, experiences a reversal of the usual dynamic. The usual dynamic says, I have something you need and you are seeking it from me. The reversed dynamic says, you have something I cannot access and I am drawn to understand what it is. That something, the specific quality of internal groundedness that makes you non-seeking, is the thing the room wants from you, not your approval specifically. The quality of being near someone whose stability does not depend on anything external. Machiavelli observed this in the rulers who held the most genuine influence across the courts of Florence. He noted that the rulers who sought the court's approval were managed by the court. The rulers who were internally settled became the source from which the court sought its own stability. The ruler's composure became the court's anchor, not because the ruler was providing approval, because the ruler was modeling something the court could not produce on its own. The specific quality of someone whose internal state was not governed by the external environment. And modeling, in any social system, produces following. The room follows the person who is modeling what the room wants but cannot generate. Here is your practice. The next time you are in a group setting, notice the moment when someone in the group looks to you for a reaction, for the nod, for the confirmation that what they said was acceptable. That looking, that specific, observable, measurable moment when someone's eyes check your face for the approval response, is the evidence that the reversal is working. You have become the person the room checks with, rather than the person doing the checking. And the transition from checker to checked with is the transition from approval seeker to approval source. That transition, once it has occurred, changes every dynamic you are part of. Because the source holds influence that the seeker can never access. The seeker pursues. The source attracts. And attraction, in any human dynamic, produces better outcomes than pursuit. Let me give you a specific scenario that shows this transformation in action. You are in a professional environment where you used to be the person checking every contribution with the senior people in the room, looking for the nod, scanning for the approval, adjusting based on what the scan revealed. Over the past month, you have been practicing the internal validation system. You have stopped the scanning. You have been producing your work at the level your own standards dictate rather than at the level the room's anticipated response suggested. And something has shifted. You notice it first in a meeting. You make a contribution, a brief, precise, internally validated observation, and instead of checking the senior person's face for the approval, you return to your notes, to the substance, to the work. And you feel, from across the room, the senior person's attention shift toward you with a quality that it never carried when you were the one seeking it. The attention is curious rather than evaluative. It is drawn rather than given. It is the specific quality of interest that arrives when something rare has been detected. And the rare thing the room has detected is someone who is not seeking what everyone else in the room is seeking. That detection, that moment when the room notices that you are not monitoring its response, is the moment the reversal completes. You have crossed from seeker to source. And the crossing, once it has happened, does not reverse, because the room has seen the real version. And the real version, the one that does not need what the room is offering, is the one the room cannot stop thinking about. Comment, I become the source, not the seeker. Law 6. Remove the approval from every relationship and see what remains. What survives without the approval is the real relationship. What collapses is the performance. My friend Machiavelli wrote something about alliances that applies to your personal relationships with uncomfortable precision. He wrote, "Friendships that are won by awards and not by greatness and nobility of soul are paid for but are not secured and cannot be called upon in time of need." Apply this directly. The relationships that are maintained through your constant approval-seeking behavior, through the indiscriminate accommodation, the automatic agreement, the specific quality of always available warmth that you have been offering as the price of continued inclusion, are relationships that were purchased. And purchased relationships, as Machiavelli documented, do not hold when the purchasing stops. Here is the test. For 1 month, stop the approval-seeking behaviors in one specific relationship, not the genuine warmth, the approval-seeking behaviors. Stop agreeing when you disagree. Stop accommodating when the accommodation costs you. Stop monitoring their response to what you say and adjusting your next sentence based on the monitoring. Just be, genuinely, without the performance that the approval-seeking has been producing. And watch what happens to the relationship when the performance is removed. In some cases, the relationship will strengthen. The person on the other end, freed from the specific quality of inauthenticity that approval-seeking always produces, will respond to the genuine version of you with more genuine engagement than the performing version ever received. The relationship was real. The approval-seeking was just noise that was running on top of it. In other cases, the relationship will weaken. The person on the other end, who had been receiving the performance as the price of their continued presence, will notice the reduction and begin to withdraw. The withdrawal tells you everything you need to know. This relationship was sustained by your approval-seeking behavior rather than by genuine mutual investment. And a relationship sustained by your performance is not a relationship. It is an arrangement. And arrangements that require your continuous performance to survive are arrangements that have been consuming you at a rate you can now see clearly for the first time. Their outcome is an improvement, The strengthened relationship is the one worth having. The weakened one is the one that was costing you. And the costing, visible for the first time through the specific clarity that the removal of the approval seeking produced, is the thing that allows you to make an honest decision about whether the arrangement deserves your continued investment. Machiavelli would say, "The prince who buys loyalty discovers, when the money runs out, that the loyalty was for the money. Stop buying and see who stays." Let me tell you something about this test that requires genuine emotional courage. The test will reveal things you may not want to see. Some of the relationships you believe are genuine will thin out the moment the approval-seeking behavior is removed. The friend who seemed close will become distant when the automatic accommodation stops. The colleague who seemed supportive will become cool when the eager agreement is no longer available. The person who seemed to value you will reveal that what they valued was the specific quality of your compliance rather than the specific quality of you. Seeing these things is painful. It is the specific pain of discovering that something you believed was mutual was actually unilateral. That the relationship you thought was built on genuine connection was built on your performance. And the performance, now removed, has revealed the gap that the performance was covering. Machiavelli would tell you that this pain is the cheapest pain available. It is cheaper than the continued expenditure of the performance. It is cheaper than the ongoing depletion of your energy into relationships that were consuming it without returning it. It is cheaper than the slow, grinding, daily erosion of your authentic self that the performance was producing as its hidden cost. See the truth, feel the pain, and make the next decision from the truth rather than from the comfortable fiction that the performance was constructing. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that makes this permanent. He wrote, "Whoever believes that new benefits will cause great personages to forget old injuries is deceived." Apply this to relationships built on approval seeking. Whoever believes that years of performed accommodation have built genuine loyalty is deceived. The loyalty that was purchased through performance is loyalty that expires when the purchasing stops. Only the loyalty that exists without the performance is the loyalty worth having. Test for it, and let the test reveal what the performance was hiding. Comment: I test every relationship by removing the performance. Law 7. The permanent shift. When internal validation becomes your operating system, the external approval arrives without being sought and is received without being needed. This is the last law. This is the one that makes every other law permanent. And it is the most counterintuitive thing in this entire video. The external approval you have been seeking your entire life arrives most consistently and most genuinely when you stop seeking it. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune favors the bold, not because boldness guarantees success, but because the bold move while the timid calculate." Apply this to approval. The room favors the person who does not need its favor, not because not needing guarantees approval, but because the not needing communicates a quality that the room is instinctively drawn to validate. The quality of sufficiency. The quality of someone who has built their sense of themselves on a foundation that the room did not construct and therefore cannot dismantle. That quality, encountered by the room, produces the specific response that the approval seeker has been exhausting themselves trying to generate. Genuine respect. Not performed respect. Not the respect that is given because the seeker's effort made the withholding feel cruel. Genuine respect. The kind that arrives because the room has encountered something rare. A person who does not need what the room is offering. And the rarity has triggered the specific quality of attention and regard that rarity always triggers. Here is what this looks like over 90 days of consistent practice. In the first 2 weeks, the withdrawal of approval-seeking behavior feels like loss. The attention that used to go to monitoring the room's response has been redirected to your own work and your own standards, and the redirection feels like you are missing something. Like the room is responding and you are not watching the response. That feeling is the withdrawal. Not the withdrawal of the approval, the withdrawal of the seeking. And the seeking, like any habit that has been running for years, does not release easily. It pulls, it insists. It tells you that the room's response is important and that not monitoring it is irresponsible. By the end of the first month, the pulling weakens. The internal validation system, built through the daily practice of honest self-assessment against your own standards, has begun to produce a genuine sense of your own value that does not depend on the room's confirmation. The feeling of loss has been replaced by a feeling of freedom. The freedom of not needing to scan. The freedom of not needing to adjust. The freedom of occupying a conversation with your full attention on the substance rather than on the audience's reaction to the substance. By the end of the third month, the shift is permanent. The internal validation system is the operating system. The room's approval still arrives, and it arrives more frequently and more genuinely than it did when you were seeking it, because the room is now responding to the real version of you rather than the performing version. But the arrival no longer changes your state. It is received the way a person with a full plate receives an additional serving, with gratitude and without the specific hunger that would have made the receiving feel essential rather than pleasant. Machiavelli would tell you one final thing. He would say, "The man who built his value internally is the man who walks into every room already holding what the room was going to offer. And the man who already holds what the room was going to offer is the man the room cannot leverage, cannot manage, and cannot control through the offering and withholding of the thing he no longer needs. That man is free. And free, in any environment where most people are chained to the room's assessment of their worth, is the most dangerous quality available. Not dangerous to others. Dangerous to the systems that depend on your compliance being available for purchase at the price of the room's approval." Let me give you something specific about what the permanent shift feels like from the inside, because you need to know what you are building toward. The permanent shift does not feel like indifference. It does not feel like not caring. It feels like fullness. The specific, quiet, genuinely warm quality of someone who is full. Full of their own honest assessment. Full of their own genuine relationship with their own capability. Full of the specific internal ground that makes the room's offering pleasant, but not essential. The fullness is not performed. It is the natural product of 90 days of building the internal system that this video described. And the fullness, once it is present, changes how you receive everything: compliments, criticism, approval, rejection, from the specific quality of someone who is adding to an already full container rather than pouring into an empty one. Machiavelli would say this as the final thing in this entire video. He would say, "The man who is full does not chase what the man who is empty pursues." And the world, encountering the full man, responds not with the management it applies to the empty one, but with the specific quality of genuine respect that is reserved for the person who has built something inside themselves that the world did not construct and the world cannot dismantle. That respect is the approval you were seeking, and it arrives with devastating irony only after the seeking has ended. Comment: I receive approval without needing it. My friend, let me close this out by saying something that ties all 7 laws together into the single truth that Machiavelli spent his career trying to make visible. The approval you have been seeking was never going to produce the feeling you were hoping it would produce. Not because the approval is worthless, because the feeling you are seeking, the settled, secure, genuinely grounded sense of your own value, cannot be produced by an external source. It can only be produced internally, through the honest assessment of what you produce against the standards you set. Through the daily practice of evaluating yourself rather than outsourcing the evaluation to rooms whose criteria you do not control. Through the specific, cold, Machiavellian understanding that the room's assessment of you is data, useful data, worth receiving, worth considering, but never the operating system. The operating system is yours, built by you, calibrated by you, and running on the specific fuel of your own honest relationship with your own capability. Machiavelli said, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great." The willingness to stop seeking, to let the habit release, to sit inside the discomfort of the not monitoring, to hold the internal assessment with enough confidence that the external assessment becomes supplementary rather than foundational. That willingness is what separates the person who watched this video and the person who was changed by it. You have the willingness. You watched this far. Now stop seeking, start building, and watch who starts chasing when you do. Here is what the building looks like starting tomorrow. One interaction where you enter with your assessment already complete rather than seeking the rooms. One conversation where you redirect the monitoring attention toward the substance rather than the audience. One moment of honest self-assessment at the close of the day that builds the internal system rather than waiting for the external one. One deployment of your best self that is aimed at someone who earned it rather than sprayed at everyone present. One moment where you notice the room checking with you rather than the other way around. Each practice is small, each one takes less than 2 minutes, and each one installs a piece of the architecture that the approval seeking was preventing from being built. Machiavelli spent 15 years seeking the approval of the Florentine political system. The system gave it intermittently, withdrew it without warning, and eventually removed it entirely. And in the space that the removal created, the painful, empty, genuinely devastating space of a man whose approval source had been eliminated, he discovered the internal system that produced the most important work of his career. Not from the room's approval, from the specific, rebuilt, internally grounded confidence of someone who had finally stopped seeking and started building. That is what is waiting for you on the other side of the seeking. Not emptiness, fullness. The specific, genuine, permanently available fullness of a person who has located their value inside themselves rather than inside the room's response. That fullness is the foundation. And the foundation, once it is built, holds everything that the approval seeking was preventing from standing. Like this video, if any of these 7 laws gave you a specific tool for breaking the approval-seeking pattern that has been running in the background of your operating system, share it with someone who is still scanning the room when they should be building the foundation. And subscribe to this channel because the next video goes directly into the advanced daily practices that maintain internal validation under the specific pressures that the approval-seeking habit uses to try to reassert itself.